Ever wonder if there are places in the world where an American passport is more of a liability than a ticket to adventure? You might think it's rare, but despite America's influence across the globe, there are countries that have closed their doors or made it nearly impossible for US citizens to visit. From security concerns to decades-long political tensions, these nations have their own reasons for drawing a hard line when it comes to American tourists. Welcome to Ultimate Tour, where today we're diving into the complex and sometimes surprising world of international relations. In this video, we'll uncover 10 destinations where, if you're an American, your travel plans may need a serious rethink. Ready to see where you're not so welcome? So, what does it mean when a country restricts American visitors? Why are certain places cautious or even resistant to American presence? And what should this tell us about global perspectives on America's role today? While many countries embrace American tourists, others have grown wary or have chosen to limit access due to unique political, historical, or cultural factors. These restrictions hint at a bigger conversation about how America is perceived abroad. From recent conflicts to deep-rooted cultural divides, these limitations show the complex and sometimes strained dynamics that shape America's presence around the world. So buckle up as we dive into our list of 10 countries where Americans aren't exactly rolling out the red carpet. North Korea. Top of our list is North Korea, officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK. Before 2017, a handful of daring tourists would visit North Korea through heavily monitored tours, typically from Beijing. But relations between the US and North Korea are tense, defined by North Korea's strict adherence to the Juche doctrine of self-reliance and isolationism. In 2017, a tragic incident involving American college student Otto Warmbier led to a US travel ban to North Korea. Warmbier was arrested on charges of hostile acts for allegedly stealing a propaganda poster, sentenced to 15 years of hard labor, and returned to the US in a coma. In June 2017, passing away days later. Since then, American travelers need a special validation passport to enter North Korea, primarily granted for journalists or humanitarian work. A surprising fact about North Korea is that they created their own Pyongyang time zone to symbolically break from imperialist influence, placing them 30 minutes behind South Korea and Japan. Due to high risks of arbitrary detention, the US government strongly discourages Americans from visiting. Iran, a country known for its rich culture and ancient history, remains a diplomatic challenge for Americans. Ever since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, US-Iranian relations have been strained, leading to heavy sanctions and travel restrictions. Americans can technically visit Iran, but only through guided tours approved by the government, with a detailed itinerary that leaves little room for independent exploration. The US government's opposition to Iran's nuclear program has also added tension, making any American presence there especially scrutinized. Notably, Iran's visa application process is complex, involving extensive background checks. Many travelers are unaware that Iran has the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the Middle East, showcasing its deep historical importance. But due to long-standing political friction, tourism for Americans remains limited and carefully monitored. Cuba. Just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, Cuba, an island nation rich in history and culture, has long been a destination of interest for Americans, but is fraught with restrictions due to Cold War-era conflicts. The US embargo on Cuba, known locally as El Bloco, limits American tourism by permitting visits only for specific reasons such as family, journalism, or humanitarian projects. Americans can travel under one of 12 authorized categories, which require a full-time itinerary that promotes Cuban civil society, like staying in a local casa particular or dining at private paladares. Americans must also obtain a Cuban tourist card for entry. Despite Cuba being less than 100 miles from Florida, Americans must navigate a maze of regulations to experience its vibrant culture, and they cannot use US credit or debit cards due to embargo restrictions requiring them to bring cash. Saudi Arabia, Once nearly impossible for American tourists to enter, Saudi Arabia has only recently opened its doors to foreign travelers. Located on the Arabian Peninsula, this nation is known for its rich oil reserves and deeply conservative Islamic laws. Before 2019, Saudi Arabia only issued visas to pilgrims visiting Mecca, business travelers, or family members of residents. However, under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 initiative, the country introduced tourist visas in an effort to diversify its economy. Now, US citizens can apply for an e-visa, but there are still strict rules, particularly for women, who face dress codes and travel restrictions. Despite the loosening of rules, certain religious sites are off-limits, and Americans are encouraged to be mindful of local customs. Bhutan, nestled in the Himalayas between China and India, Bhutan operates under a unique tourism policy called High Value Low Impact, aimed at preserving its culture and environment. For Americans, this means paying a daily fee of $200 to $250 to visit, which covers accommodations, meals, a licensed guide, and a sustainable tourism tax. Although this approach helps fund Bhutan's free education and healthcare systems, it also discourages mass tourism. Bhutan's Gross National Happiness Index is prioritized over GDP, reflecting their commitment to cultural preservation, and Americans interested in this remarkable country must go through a tour operator to secure a visa. Bhutan's limited visitor policy offers an exclusive experience but poses a high-cost barrier for many travelers. Russia. In light of the conflict with Ukraine, Russia is now off-limits to most Americans. However, even before the 2022 invasion, Americans faced significant hurdles to enter Russia, including extensive visa requirements and mandatory invitation letters. Visitors must detail their travel history, affiliations, and even their parents' names as part of the application process. Although Russia's sprawling landscapes and historical sites attract tourists worldwide, heightened diplomatic tensions have created new security concerns for American visitors. Russia also requires an exit visa upon departure, and the complex bureaucracy can be intimidating. With relations strained, Americans should approach travel here cautiously, especially given the diplomatic landscape. Turkmenistan. In Central Asia, Turkmenistan stands out as one of the world's most challenging destinations for US citizens. Known for its eccentric leadership and the flaming Darvaza gas crater or door to hell, Turkmenistan has a highly restrictive visa policy for Americans. To obtain a visa, travelers need an invitation from a local tour agency and government approval, which can take weeks and isn't guaranteed. Independent travel is almost non-existent, as tourists are required to be part of organized tours and to follow strict itineraries. The visa requirements stem from Turkmenistan's reclusive policies and limited diplomatic relations with the US. Eritrea, nicknamed the North Korea of Africa, Eritrea, located on the Horn of Africa, has a reclusive government that limits foreign access. The visa process for US citizens is notoriously difficult, often requiring personal interviews and a long wait time. Approval isn't guaranteed, even with all required documents, and those who succeed still face restrictions, needing additional permits to travel outside the capital city of Asmara. Eritrea's isolationist policies are rooted in a history of internal conflict and strained relations with Western countries over issues like human rights. However, those who manage to visit often speak of Eritrea's unique architecture and untouched landscapes. Iraq. Due to ongoing instability and security risks, the US Department of State advises Americans against traveling to Iraq. The country has faced years of conflict and challenges, making it a high-risk destination. If Americans do wish to visit, they must apply for a visa and may face heavy scrutiny. The situation has its roots in decades of complex US-Iraq relations, including the 2003 invasion and subsequent conflicts. Although Iraq is rich in historical and cultural sites like the ruins of Babylon, the safety risks make it a difficult destination for American tourists. Traveling here may also impact future travel to certain other countries. Syria. Finally, Syria remains largely off-limits due to ongoing civil conflict, terrorism, and a significant humanitarian crisis. Since the Syrian civil war began in 2011, the country has faced severe destruction, and the US government advises against all travel to the region. The process for obtaining a visa is complicated, as Americans must apply through a third-party embassy in a neutral country, since Syria has always been, even before the civil war started, operations in Washington, D.C. in 2014. The risks for travelers include kidnapping and exposure to violence, and having a Syrian stamp in your passport can lead to entry restrictions in other countries. Syria's historical landmarks, including ancient cities and UNESCO sites, may have attracted travelers in the past, but now the reality on the ground makes it one of the most challenging places to visit. So there you have it, 10 countries where Americans face the toughest travel restrictions in 2025. Each country has its unique set of reasons for limiting American access, whether due to historical tensions, security concerns, or cultural preservation efforts. As America's influence continues to shape the world, these examples show that travel can often be complicated by political, cultural, or historical factors. If you've got thoughts on this list or personal experiences with travel restrictions, let us know in the comments below. And for more content on the complex relationships between nations, don't forget to check out our next video, where we dive deeper into the world of international relations. Safe travels, everyone.